Hi. Let's look at assessment criteria 5.2. And here in the marketing plan, we are going to look at some of the metrics. What do you mean by matrix? Matrix means measures. How you can measure the marketing plan. How you can measure the performance of the marketing plan. So here we will be looking at a few theories. Here we will be looking at a few theories. We have discussed this already, but we will look at it again. SMART objectives. SMART is an abbreviation. We will understand how to use it. Then how do you set KPIs? KPIs means key performance indicators, key performance measures, or key performance indicators. And how would you ensure that the measurements you select are valid, reliable, and accurate? We'll be discussing what patterns are, trends, and issues when it comes to the marketing plan. So when you look at data, you will see trends, you'll see patterns, you'll see issues. We'll understand some examples of analytical tools, especially when it comes to digital marketing. We will understand some examples of monitoring and measuring the marketing plan. How do you report? How do you continuously monitor and improve the marketing plan? And then some of the actionable measures, digital marketing and non-digital measures. We call them vanity matrix. We'll come into that. And then you have some of the actionable measures. So this is assessment criteria 5.2. Let's start now. So we start this conversation by understanding what SMART objectives are. We discussed this in an earlier chapter. SMART objectives are specific, measurable, assignable or achievable, realistic, and time-bound goals and objectives. So you need to make sure your objectives are SMART, because if the objectives are measured and SMART, time-bound, then you know the marketing plan will get implemented and the activities will get done. So an example here, how you can state a SMART objective: to be the leading supplier of healthy fruit drinks, that's specific, for children by 2020, time-bound, with a market share of 15%, measured, relevant, achievable, right? So here's an example of a SMART objective. And what do you mean by key performance indicators or KPIs? KPIs are used to measure the company's critical success factors. So you're learning two keywords. A critical success factor, as per the name suggests, critical success factors or CSFs, what it means is the factors that are critical to succeed in an industry. Now, if you take the airline industry, the factors that are critical to succeed in the airline industry might be on-time departures, then load factor, how empty or full is your airline, number of destinations, number of code share partners. These are all critical success factors. Another one can be the fuel price. These are all critical success factors in the airline industry. Now you need to measure all these. If you measure all these critical success factors, those are called KPIs, key performance indicators. So business must understand what are its critical success factors, which are factors that are critical to succeed in that industry. Can be the supermarket industry. It can be a bank. It can be an airline. What are the factors that are critical to succeed in that industry? And how do you take each and every activity and measure them? We call them a key performance measure or a key performance indicator, KPIs. KPIs. There will be a limited number of factors that are really critical to the organization's success. That's why we call it critical success factors. And it is important that we measure them. It is important that we measure them. So can you see this example? This is a real student's work, guys. This is a real student's work. This is Cargill's. Cargill's critical success factors. There are 4 critical success factors here: customer satisfaction, brand recognition, online mobile app. This is a student's work, new product development and innovation. So you can describe the critical success factors. And then how do you measure this? What is the frequency of monitoring this? How do you measure? Can you see? So you identify the critical success factors and determine how to measure it. How to measure it. Okay. Here's another example. You determine the critical success factors. And then you decide how to measure it. This is for Singer, the company Singer, and the frequency of monitoring. So I hope it is clear. You need to measure your critical success factors. We call them key performance indicators. So when you're measuring them, you need to understand the reliability of your measure, the validity of your measure, and the accuracy. Because if you're measuring something, it will get done. Now, those of you who go to a gym, when you get onto the treadmill, you start measuring. What do you measure in a treadmill? When you run, when you walk, you measure the number of calories you burn. You measure the time you're walking or running. The speed, average speed per minute. You look at your heart rate. All these are measures. If you measure things, then you have a goal. If you don't measure things, you don't have a goal and you'll not get it done. So these measures must be valid, reliable, and accurate. And when you look at data, we always look at data before we measure. When we look at data, we will see patterns, trends, issues. So a trend is usually a change of a variable compared to something else over a period of time. So if you take weather patterns to sale of ice cream. So if you take the sale of ice cream, and if you take the weather patterns, on rainy days, you see data shows that ice cream sales are going down. On hot days, you'll see ice cream sales are going up. So you take 2 factors, ice cream sales and the weather, and then you'll see a trend over the data over a period of time. And you will observe certain patterns in the changes in variables. And when you have a long history of data, you then will be able to predict the future. You will be able to predict the future. Now, this is done very well in digital marketing. If you look at some of the analytical tools used in digital marketing, right? These are some examples. I mean, I have used some of these like HubSpot, Hootsuite, social. I've used Social Insights by Facebook, Facebook Insights by Facebook, then Hootsuite, HubSpot are some of the things I've used Google Analytics as well, Google Analytics. Yeah, so these are other examples that you can see here. Some of you would have used this. So some of the screenshots I've taken here, like this is Social Sprout, where you can look at your digital analytics on your social media channels. And when you wake up in the morning, it will tell you the profile of your customers, how many have visited your web page, your Instagram page, your Facebook page. And you can see it gives you very interesting insights like this. So it will tell you whether your visits have gone down, whether your likes. Now, these things like likes and all are not really relevant anymore. We call them vanity metrics. Vanity means they are good just to see, because you can just more likes you have does not really mean that you got more sales, right? Because things like likes and all are called vanity matrices. What really matters is the engagement you have with your audience, the engagement. So the post engagement rate. So you can look at likes, but then you can look at comments, number of shares, all those matter. The reach. Okay. So you can sometimes compare your brand and your posts on social media channels with others. Can you see how it is done here? I've used Social Bakers, which is very expensive. It will show you in a dashboard all the car brands. Let's say if you are selling BMW, it will show you your statistics, your fan growth, right? And how much you spend and what awareness, what engagement you have. And you'll compare it with your competitors. It'll compare it with your competitors. So you can see whether you have improved much more than your competitors or not, right? So today, digital marketing uses a lot of such analytics tools, like even Google Analytics, right? Uh, Google Analytics is very popular and it's used by many today. It is simplified at a click of a button so that all marketers can use it. You don't need experienced marketers. Today, Google Analytics, I do my own analytics, right, for CCBM. So it is, you don't need to be a specialist, because when you play around with data, you have a lot of insights that are given by the software. So it is important that you use these tools as a marketer. Remember, digital marketing is all about measuring. It's all about measuring. If you are doing into e-commerce, if you are into creating sales via your web page or your socials, it's all about monitoring and making sure the number of people you take your brand to and create awareness result in not only page visits and likes and comments, but also they should check out, they should ensure they pay you and buy your product. There's no point just coming and visiting your website and bouncing off. They need to come and buy your product. So monitoring and measuring is very critical. You need to control and monitor your marketing efforts so that you can clearly understand and evaluate. And there are many tools today available. Like I told you, give you some examples in the digital marketing sphere that you can measure and monitor your performance. So dashboards like this are presented to the board of directors when we report our findings on a monthly basis. So at the board meeting every month, you will need to, as a marketer, go and make a presentation, and you would need to report the dashboard of your monthly performance of the marketing plan. So you can compare it by segment, by products, by competitors, and you can show the performance of your marketing plan and report your marketing plan using charts and graphs like this. So these are examples of students' work from level 6. You are in level 4. I told you in level 6, you will be undertaking a marketing plan. These are examples of dashboards where you create with charts and graphs. Then we understand what continuous improvement means. Now, you see, in marketing, marketing is not a static subject. Marketing is not a static subject that stays the same. Marketing is a subject that needs to be continuously improved. So if you even develop a marketing plan, you still need to improve continuously, month on month, week on week, quarter on quarter. You need to keep improving and making changes to your marketing plan. Why? Because the environment, the micro environment is dynamic and it keeps changing. So if the environment is changing, your macro environment, your pest factors, your micro environment, the industry keeps changing every day. But if your marketing plan does not change to seize the opportunities and to counter any threats in the environment, if your marketing plan does not respond fast and be agile and nimble and change fast, then you will drift away. So continuous improvement is to monitor the performance on a regular basis and allow the organization to make small incremental changes to the company's strategy so that you are then meeting the marketing environments change. And a theory that we use in continuous improvement is called total quality management. TQM is a management philosophy. It's a Japanese management philosophy, and then it was an American management philosophy that advocates excellence across the whole organization. Excellence in what you do in manufacturing. It also emphasizes continuous improvement of all operations. So a theory that we use under continuous improvement is a theory called the Deming cycle. It has 4 stages. The Deming cycle has 4 stages: plan, do, check, act. This is the cycle. So what it says is, whenever you undertake a task in the organization, you'll first plan, then you'll implement, then you'll see whether what you implement has worked properly. Then you'll take corrective action. Again, plan, again, implement, see whether what you have done is correct, and then take corrective action, again, plan. This is called the Deming cycle, the 4-step Deming cycle. Plan clarifies who is involved, the purpose, what needs to be changed. Then you implement the plan. Then you check the outcome of the plan and monitor. And act will involve taking any lessons that you've learned and improvements for future decisions. So we call this a continuous improvement cycle or the Deming cycle. Another word is PDCA cycle. Here's an example of how it has been used in a marketing plan by a student. The Deming cycle. Okay, so continuous improvement is very, very important. And now we go into some measures. Another word for measures would be metrics. You need to pronounce this word properly, metrics. How you would measure marketing. So there are some digital measures. We call them vanity metrics. I think you know already, number of followers, number of page likes, right? These are called vanity metrics because these are good to some extent, but they don't really mean that you have high amount of sales, or your brand is strong, or you have high market share, or you have higher profit. These are called vanity matrices. These are things that people like to see on social media, but doesn't really translate into business. So they call them vanity metrics. But these are also important, But more important than the vanity digital marketing matrices are the actionable matrices, right? How many customers are active? We call that the activation rate. How many customers are active, right? So if you have so many customers, gym memberships, How many at least come once a month, once a week? That is an activation rate. Customer retention rate. So if you are an airline, how many customers fly with you, regularly, at least 3 times a year? Or do customers go from one airline to the other? Then your retention rate is not great. Conversion rate. Conversion rate especially comes on e-commerce, right? If you look at e-commerce, the purpose of e-commerce is to create awareness, consideration, conversion. What do you mean by conversion? Conversion means you make a sale. There's no point having a high awareness, high consideration, but low sales. This is called the digital marketing funnel. So the job of a digital marketer is to make sure you have a large number of customers who are aware, and then large number of customers who actively consider your product. But conversion is the sale. How many people buy? How many people go to the checkout, the basket online and pay? And then you have repeat customers and loyalty advocates who will advocate your brand, right? So this is the digital marketing funnel. And the final point here is the cost per customer acquisition. We call it CPA, cost per acquisition. Every customer is a cost to acquire. That is why Kotler said it is cheaper to retain customers than to acquire new customers. It is cheaper to retain customers than to acquire new customers. So the cost per customer should always be low. Acquisition cost per customer should always be low. If your acquisition cost per customer is very high, then your business is not doing too well. So these are some of the business actionable marketing metrics or measures. And then you have some vanity measures, digital marketing vanity measures, good to have measures from a digital standpoint. And that is the conclusion of assessment criteria 5.2.